Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual breakfast sessions. I'm Larry Sashin, and today we're visiting beautiful, far off Rhode Island, and we're visiting the people from Johnson and Wales. But before we go into the show, let me thank the people who are paying our bills. The Era Group and Ed Flanagan. Listen, I'm like a broken record with this. If you are tired of paying the employee taxes of your people and you think there might be some better way, well, there is. The IRS has come up with a cafeteria 125 plan that will help you retain some of the money you're paying for your employee taxes. And if you want to know about this, call Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. You could check them out on our website. We have their phone numbers and everything there ready for you. So back to the show. Culinary education leaders, Johnson and Wales. Guys, why don't we introduce ourselves? Dean, why don't you start?
Sure. Hi, Larry, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm Jason Evans, the Dean of the College of Food Innovation and Technology at Johnson Wales.
Okay. And Jeremy, say hi.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy Houghton. I am the Department Chair for the College of Food Innovation and Technology here at Providence, Rhode Island for Johnson & Wales. One of our two locations. We have one obviously in Charlotte, North Carolina, and here in Providence.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Providence, not Newport. Providence, get that in my head.
It's a stone throw away. It's okay.
Well, everything in Rhode Island is a stone throw away. So Fred, say hi to the folks.
Good morning, Fred Clashman, editor and publisher at Total Food Service.
All right, back to our show. You know, we were just talking before I turned on the recording, and there's just so many avenues that you can take, leaving high school, leaving your old job, leaving. There are doors that are open for you. One of them is Johnson and Wales. And we're going to discuss today why you should choose, who goes to Johnson and Wales, and those people, why you should choose Johnson and Wales. Dean, why don't you start explaining the Johnson and Wales difference?
Sure. Well, so first of all, Johnson Wales is a comprehensive university in that our students, even in our more technical programs like culinary or baking and pastry arts, take a full slate of university core or liberal arts classes. And so they're coming out of here with a bachelor's of science degree, which, as you know, is entirely transferable into a graduate degree even, and employers recognize what that degree is. I would say that's the starting point in terms of how we're different, but more than that, deeper than that, we just have in our lab-based programs like culinary or baking and pastry or applied food science or culinary science, such a commitment to making sure students leave here knowing how to work in a workplace. So we actually grade students on professionalism. And for me, that develops over the 2 or 4 years that these students are with us. And there is a fundamental difference between a senior who's ready to graduate and a freshman who's just starting with us in terms of the way they communicate, the way they carry themselves, the way they approach the world, just how curious they are. So all of these skills that employers demand, but are hard to find sometimes if somebody hasn't been through the rigors and tested sort of on a daily basis in terms of how professional they behave.
Okay. Jeremy, can you add to that?
I can. I think with Johnson & Wales, with all the programs that, the dean has mentioned, I think you look at an opportunity where somebody coming to us, whether, and a majority of our students do come directly out of high school, they've watched a cooking show or two, they may have cooked in high school, they've watched that celebrity chef, and they were like, I think I really want to pursue that. And one of the things that Dean Evans says a lot, which I'm going to steal one of his taglines, is that this is a safe place to fail. So why would you pick Johnson & Wales? It's a place where you come in and we take whatever passions you have, whatever desire you want to be, whether it's your own bakery, whether you want to be a personal chef, or you want to be a personal chef to an athlete, any of those dreams, and we help those students facilitate that. And one of the best things that we have at our school is a lot of electives. Like Dean Evans said, in the bachelor's degree program, they're electives. So if a student wants to take a class in wine, or they wanted to take one in cheese, or if they want to take one in catering, any of those avenues, they can really focus in and really do what they want. If they want to do a study abroad, they want to go over to Europe, they want to go to Singapore, they want to go down to Peru, whatever it might be, we're taking those students and giving them, and yeah, they're paying tuition, but again, it's a safe place. We're teaching them, all right, if you screw up that steak, it's not going to affect my bottom line, but it's you may have overcooked it, but let's try it again. We're going to get them to cook that steak the right way, that sauce the proper way. We're going to teach them more of a science. If you work in a restaurant, for example, they're going to teach you their way. They're not going to explain to you, all right, if I'm deep frying a chicken tender, well, what's really cooking that chicken? It's heat. It's heat generated by through the oil to the chicken, increasing the temperature. Where if they were working in a restaurant, they would just throw it in the deep fryer and the fat's cooking it. Well, we know fat doesn't cook anything. It just transfers heat. So we can explain that to them to make them a better chef. And that's what our why we have career fairs with over 100 companies that are coming just starving for Johnson & Wales graduates.
Okay, Fred, any questions?
Well, I mean, one of the questions that comes to mind right away is we have all this technology now, like combi ovens and things like that. How has that impacted how we're teaching? And is there still a need for high-level cooking, on top of a 6-burner range? Where is the industry and where are you guys with that?
So I think that to make these students as graduates as nimble as possible, they're really seeing the gamut of technology in these kitchens. Certainly the very sophisticated combi ovens, and thank goodness we have a lot of industry partners who want their tools in front of our students. We couldn't do this without them, honestly. So they're seeing every potential piece of equipment that they might run into. And I actually think that if they're graduating and going out to work for relatively small restaurants or bakeries or cafes, those businesses aren't necessarily going to have state-of-the-art yet. They're not going to have the Cadillac yet. But my students have seen and worked on even rudimentary, simple pieces of equipment. But if they go out and work for major food service management companies that have highly sophisticated kitchens, they've seen all of that too. But what I say to incoming students is, you expect us to teach you how to cook and bake. And yes, we're going to do that. But the most important thing that we hope we do is to teach you the curiosity of how to do all of that better. And when we say better, it's not just more delicious, that's part of it, but more efficiently, less expensively, using better ingredients, using better nutrition. So we want them curious about how to do it better. And in my opinion, having a full suite of equipment and tools in your back pocket, knowing how to use them to get the result you want, is an important part of that innovation.
And it's exactly true. And I think where our program like ours is different is that, and I'll use barbecue as an example. A couple of years ago, I flew out and I took a training class to judge the World Series of barbecue. I thought I knew barbecue, all right? And you sit through this class and you learn the science, and then you talk to all the people, hundreds of people from around the world come to compete at this. And, I sat and I tasted well over 200 different barbecues, and what makes them different? That's science. So can I cook, in an oven, a combi oven and do it? Yeah. Can I just hit a button? Absolutely. But to make it that next level, to understand, all right, when does sweating take place? In that brisket, what temperature should it really be at? How much moisture do I need? So in that oven, I can put 100% moisture. I could put 75. I could put 62. I could be so exact. But if I don't understand that science of what happens to that protein while it's in the oven, it's going to be dried out. It's going to be tasteless, or it's going to be tough, or whatever it might be. So we have to explain to them that science of when it stalls, when it's, smoking, it's steaming, or whatever it might be. Those cooking principles, those are what's going to make a better chef that's going to go out and work at 11 Madison Park or Modern or whatever in New York. And they're going to be better at it because when I turn that burner on, I understand how the heat comes up and how it heats the pan up and how to cook it and why I don't turn it over 15 times and all of that. It goes very much to science. So we embrace all of those industry partners that we have at Johnson & Wales, and we do show them the best way. Now, to Dean's point, are they going to go out there and no, they might not have those luxury items. That's why they understand the science. So if I have a conduction oven in my little mom and pop restaurant that I decided to work in, I can achieve the same thing by putting a pan of ice in there so that I can have moisture in the cavity while it's cooking. So we teach them all of those science tools to go along with it to make their end product much better.
Okay,
so what hold on a second. So what happens in the classroom when a kid who has come in as an artiste of food all of a sudden finds out that there's a whole piece of science under it? Are those the same skill sets? Like, how do those things mesh?
So we have to work pretty hard sometimes to turn students onto that part of it. And no question, that's not easy for some of them. If they've come out of more vocational high school programs and they have just a sense that Johnson & Wales is going to be a continuation of what they've done as high school students, we do have to unwork that a little bit. But that's why it's incredibly important to us that those science and management and business and contextual and food system pieces are actually part of the conversations that are happening in those lab classes, right? They already see the lab class as much more fun, much more engaging. That's where we're going to try to sneak in all of these contextual pieces, and they learn it almost by osmosis, right? That we're not forcing them to learn those things in a context in which they don't like to learn. It's all right there in the lab kitchen with them. And by the way, a lot of our graduates eventually in their careers end up working for major equipment manufacturers. So that's another benefit of them seeing a wide range of technologies. Sometimes they go out on the road as corporate chefs and are selling these things.
Oh, okay. So while we're talking about students, let's talk about what does a day of a freshman look like when they come to Johnson & Wales?
Well, so if they're doing it the right way, the day is pretty darn full. All of them are going to have lab classes probably 2 days a week. Our labs are 6 hours long. So once you're in lab for 6 hours and you've arrived a half an hour early, you stay a half an hour to chat with the instructor or finish up. You've really got a full 7-hour lab day in. On their off days, the Tuesday, Thursday, if they're lab Monday, Wednesday, they're in their academic classes. So the sciences, the social sciences, the math, the English. And in the off time, we really want our students working. So Johnson & Wales doesn't have Friday classes with the expectation that our students are out working in local food and hospitality businesses Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and any other time they can. Beyond that, we have 100+ student organizations, and a lot of them are food focused, and those kids are busy. They're really leaders on campus, putting on events, volunteering, fundraisers, you name it. So if a kid is really getting a return on investment and grabbing this by the horns, they can fill every minute. They're probably napping a little bit. I mean, honestly, let's not kid ourselves. That transition to that first year of college is a shock to your system, I think, physiologically. And so I'm sure that they're taking some downtime too to sort of piece their lives back together. But it's very busy. It's very intense. We have homework and projects and everything you can imagine, even attached to those lab classes. So when they leave lab, they're not done for the day.
And okay. One of the good things that we do that students absolutely can't stand, but our industry tells us, is group projects. So we do a lot of student-based driven menus, concepts where they have to collaborate outside of the classroom. So even though they're in that class 6-7 hours a day, they're meeting with their groups afterwards, talking about, let's develop a list of responsibilities. Who's going to do what this day? Who's going to do this? How do we order this? Did we order this? And our students absolutely hate group projects. And what's ironic is when you talk to industry, what do they want our students to have more of is group work, because when they get out there, that's what they're going to do. They're going to be working with a group. So if you have that slacker, coworker or student that doesn't pull their part, how do you deal with that? How do you pick up their slack? How do you encourage them, motivate them to be part of their team? That shows when you go out there. And when you have big restaurant groups like Alenia and Thomas Keller Food Group coming to our school to hire our graduates, that tells you that we're doing the right thing in that environment.
Right. No, very few chefs cook alone. You got to learn to work on a team. What about further on down the road? Say a senior. What does his day look like?
Yeah, so as Jeremy kind of alluded to, by the time our students are juniors and seniors, and to some extent even sophomores, their lab classes are really all built around them developing their own concepts. So the seniors and juniors are spending even more time than the freshmen are outside of class on lab projects because they're their babies. I mean, they're their own concepts, fine dining concepts, casual concepts that their team has spent the entire term putting together. And they get two soft openings and a grand opening with 35 or 40 guests per pop, right? If that doesn't go well, you see it in these kids' faces. Like they really take ownership of it, which is exactly what we want them to do. It's very different from giving them an individual written exam, right? So they are truly spending a lot of time outside of class working with their teams and parts of their teams in making sure that concept is what it needs to be. And they do that multiple times during their time here at Johnson Wales. We really hope that by the time they're juniors and seniors, if they haven't been working as freshmen or sophomores, that they are working. And all of our programs require full-term internships. So at some point in their junior or senior year, they're completely off campus, somewhere else in the world, doing a full-time 40-hour a week, 15-week internship.
Mm-hmm. Do you assist them in getting these internships?
Yes. So, in any number of ways, we have an entire division of staff, our experiential ed team, who are there to help students connect with internship sites. And so we have a process where our internship employers register and are able to post those opportunities to students. But more often than not, our really talented students who have a very specific vision of where they want to be will come to us and say, I want to work at per se in California. For them, we engage a little different process where our faculty and our staff dig into their Rolodexes, make those necessary contacts, and really much more directly try to get that kid hooked up with the specific opportunity they want. But every year we have more internships on offer than we have students to take them, even though our student body is huge. And that, to Jeremy's point, speaks to, I think, the fact that industry really likes our kids. They know how to work.
And I'll give an example. Can I give an example of one?
Sure.
Dean Evans and I know Nate very well, and we worked through, his time through our sustainability program. And he came to me and he said, I really want to go overseas. I've never been overseas. I really want to go overseas. Chef, who do you know? Where do you know? And after a little bit of deliberation and talking with him, he ended up at Enigma in Barcelona, and it took a little bit of work, but he did an international internship. It was 1 year, and he's just finishing at the end of this month his 1 year internship, and he's worked for Albert Adrea, Ferran's brother, two Michelin star restaurant over there, and he can come back and go where he wanted to. And lots of times he sends me a message, and he's out drinking an unbelievable wine at a restaurant in Barcelona, and he thanks me profusely because I got him in there. But, you can, as big as we are, though, when you have that student that has that passion, that has that desire to go to Per Se, to go to the French Laundry, to go to Alinea, to go wherever it might be, we have that Rolodex. We have that ability to make a contact. And, if a student I don't think is ready for that, I would probably not advise them or push them in that direction. But, that's what Nate needed. He needed to get out of the United States, see the world in a global way. He's ready to come back. He's going to go work in DC now in the sustainability in a restaurant there. So, it's life-changing. And those students that choose to really push that and make the most of it. We had another one a couple of years ago that went to Singapore and worked for Daniel Boulud's restaurant. And Joe worked there for an entire year and came back, and now he's a private chef on a yacht. So we can push them if we know what they want. Obviously, with all of the, dozens of faculty that we have a contact somewhere, somehow, so we can reach out.
So what are the class sizes? Difference in labs and in classroom. What are your class sizes?
So because we've had enrollment growth on both Charlotte and Providence campuses in these food programs in the last 3 or 4 years, normally our labs, especially freshman labs, would hang out at 17 or 18 students. Most of those sections now we're maxing out at 19, 20, sometimes 21 students if the space is large enough, but that's as big as they'll ever get.
Yeah.
By the time they're juniors and seniors, those groups are a little smaller, tend to be 15, 16 students. The good news at Johnson & Wales, though, I guess good news and bad news, Johnson & Wales never built any large lecture halls, and so we can't efficiently teach even English or science or history. We don't have 100-person lecture halls. So even those academic classes are capped out typically around 35. Small classes are the only options we have here.
And what I like about it too is a lot of our academic classes that Dean Evans mentioned are taught by chefs. So even though you might be in let's say a menu planning class and cost control class, it's a chef standing in front of the classroom in front of those 35 students taking an academic course, and they can talk about the business. It's not a math or just somebody who's never worked in a kitchen before. So our students really enjoy going because I could tell stories about running a restaurant or what it was like when I was, a personal chef or, costing things out and stuff like that. Like it builds a better student body, and it also engages the student where they want to contribute and come to even an academic class, which sometimes aren't the most exhilarating to them. But, if I'm up there talking about, what it was like as a chef in, New Mexico cooking for an outfitter where, we shot a bear and I had to fabricate it. And how did we cost it out and stuff like that? Like they look at you like, you really did that? And you're like, well, yes, like it's an outfitter where you're not just going to shoot a deer and not fabricate the whole thing and make sausage and smoke it and do this. And they're like, and so even the academic classes, you'll find a kind of a general buzz about the students that go to class there for academics.
Shock and awe with culinary. It sounds great. So Fred, another question.
Yeah, I'm curious what your perception is of what the industry is going through in terms of challenges, and whether it's labor shortages, whether it's being focused on protein this year. I'm curious how you take the priorities of the industry and bring those into the classroom every day and every year as you update curriculum.
So for me at least, and this is just part of my leadership approach. If there is something happening in industry that will fundamentally impact these kids' career outcomes or how they need to behave as professionals, the first and most important thing that I do is make sure that that's weaved into every time I communicate to faculty, to department chairs, to students. So it's consistency in messaging. This is priority right now. And for the last several years, and I'm super glad that industry has actually caught up with this one, I think where consumers are moving is much more tailored approaches to nutrition and physiology, that we actually have tools, personal tools now that can indicate to a consumer exactly the mix of macro and micronutrients that they need to optimize their health. And I think that's fabulous. Industry, not just in restaurants, but in CPG and manufactured food, is going to have to respond to that in a way that gets us out of this business of leaning on uber processing or ultra processing as a crutch. So how do you actually take more whole food derived things, minimally process them, but actually turn them into convenient, affordable, shelf-stable food? That for me is the industry challenge today, and it's going to be the industry challenge for the foreseeable future. AI can play a role there. I mean, there's no question that AI tools, generative AI, can help us as a starting point in product development and sort of nutrition planning. But we need to make sure our students understand that this is kind of the undercurrent of consumers, that food is incredibly expensive and I demand more of it than I used to. And that's why in the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a little bit of a resurfacing of consumer demand away from fast food into fast casual. Fast casual costs a few pennies more, but they perceive they're getting more out of it when they go to it. So that's the idea. Real value. Food that's not only safe, but that is actually functional and fortifying. Beyond that, in the industry, no question, if I were a business owner in food and hospitality, I am worried about labor. But that means that when I hire people, I need to hire people who are tech comfortable, who understand how to use labor and time saving technologies or are willing to learn them. And again, for me, that gets back to the old hat of what a college education is supposed to do and has always been supposed to do, which is to teach people to be curious. That as long as every single day I'm okay with learning something, that's the guy I want to hire. So as long as we're producing that kid, I think we're always going to be industry ready.
Yeah. Okay.
Great answer. Thanks.
But by the way, I will say we've been talking mostly about culinary. That is our largest program area. Our second largest program area is baking and pastry. Those students have a very intensive design piece to their curriculum. So they actually can go out into the world and work in even graphic design or marketing, advertising, because they have such design core to their training. On top of that, we have culinary nutrition. Those students these days are going out and working for major pro athletic or collegiate athletic teams as nutritionists, head chefs, dietitians. That's a really interesting and growing vertical for us. And it speaks again to this idea that access to optimized sort of performance therapeutic type cooking, I think, is where the entire consumer population is going. And thank goodness. I don't know how we ever in the United States get ahead of healthcare costs if we're not first thinking about what we're putting into our bodies. So our kids leave here programmed to think that way, and a lot of them have jobs that directly speak to it.
Okay. Okay, you know what? It's getting near that time. Fred, do you have one last question?
I'm fascinated with we're in the middle of the World Cup soccer right now, and a lot of these teams have brought their own nutrition staffs and have they're parked in these very opulent training facilities, et cetera. So it's a very timely conversation.
Yeah. Well, actually, we because World Cup was coming to a stadium just a few miles up the road here from Providence, we actually worked out with them to create these sort of one-off 3-credit internships for students. So we actually have students that are helping to actually staff those teams in those games. Great experience. But that is a major vein of interest for incoming students, is somehow working in the fitness and athletics world, but on the food and nutrition and menu planning side. Big opportunity.
All right. Well, this time comes every time during this show. Time is our enemy, and we have to start wrapping up. But before we go into that last tidbit of information I want you to leave with everybody, let me thank the people who are paying the bills again. Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. Listen, I talk to you all the time. You get your shipment, you count the boxes, you take that invoice they hand you, you stick it on a pin for the bookkeeper. Oh, what a mistake. What a mistake. If you don't go through what you're getting and the price you paid for and the price you had agreed for, you're going to lose out. It'll just be pennies. It'll be pennies here, pennies here. But we all know that pennies turn into dollars and dollars turn into financial ruin. So if you don't have the time to go through your invoices and count what's put into your box and make sure the prices are right, call Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. They will sift through your invoices. They will sift through your contracts. Make sure you're getting what you ordered and at the price you agreed to pay. And if you're not, they will help you claw back some of that money and even recommend a different distributor for you. So call Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. Back to our show. Culinary education leaders, Johnson and Wales. It has been a great show. Fred and I are very happy. We had to speak very little. And you just have opened some new doors for me. But before we say goodbye, why don't we leave the viewers with that last tidbit of information that will make them jump on a call and call Johnson and Wales? Why don't you go, Jeremy?
So yeah, I think one of the greatest things is passion. I think one of the best things that we have is that we take a student. There was a student that last week, I Future Food Service Scholarship. We gave a full tuition. It was a competition. Dean Evans, how many entries did we have in that?
200.
200 entries, and the winner came from the Kingston area of New York. And I went down to her facility at Abosi's in New York and gave out a full tuition scholarship to her. And she is the example. She has very strong passions and desires to really kick some butt in the baking and pastry world. And Johnson Wales is going to help her do that. And that's what we're about. We're taking and nurturing somebody that has a passion and a desire to be in this business and to go out there and follow their dreams.
Okay. Jason, why don't you leave some information?
I appreciate that. I think that experts of lots of fields disagree on what the impact of technology that's changing every day now, quicker than ever, is going to have on the demand for labor, is going to have on the economy and what it means to work. So I think we have to think about the types of things in the next 5, 10, 20, 25 years that no matter what technology does, we will all still need to know how to do. One of those things is we need to know how to take care of ourselves. Technology isn't going to feed us. And so that means we have a responsibility, I think, to understand food and nutrition, to understand ingredients and supply chains and how those impact our communities. Chefs and restaurateurs and food professionals then have a responsibility to actually treat food as important as it actually is to every moment of every day of our lives. So to consumers, we have to figure out how to take care of ourselves no matter what happens to technology. And these food businesses, the frontier for innovation in doing all of this better, I think there's money to be made. I think there's careers to be had in and around food. They're just going to look and feel different than they've ever felt. So that's the message to our incoming students. I think they're at the right place at the right time. And if they stick with us and do what we ask them to do and take every opportunity we present them, I think the world's their oyster.
Okay. What do you have to say, Fred?
This program has vision. I love
it. Thank you. But we appreciate that. It's honestly very personal for me, and I think for a lot of our faculty. Food's a vehicle for pretty good life.
You can tell.
Everybody does it 2 or 3 times a day.
That's right.
That's right.
So it is something near and dear to all of us. Listen, this has been a fantastic show. You have enlightened me. Fred and I have seen a good couple handfuls of programs go past us right now, and I think I haven't seen one as organized or as how do you say this? Clairvoyant.
Larry, these guys know they live in a very competitive market right now. Yeah. They know they've got to do something different, and clearly they are.
Yeah, it's like you're seeing into the future and embracing the unknown in your cooking, and it's not the same old thing over and over and over again. Like you said, in high school, you got to break the regimen where the box is open. And jump out, guys and ladies. Just jump out and embrace the future that you can have. So, talk about our future. We're going to be back again on Thursday. So please look for us on Spotify. You look for us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. And in the meantime, I only have 2 things to say. Everyone, stay positive, test negative. And I'll see you in a couple days. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.